Welcome to another episode of the Go Shout Love podcast. My name is Seth Carnell, and today we are talking with Ross and Amy, the parents to Ryker, a 7-year-old boy with CLN1 or Batten disease. You often hear us use acronyms for diagnosis. I encourage you to pay attention to that in this episode. As you will find out, those letters and numbers matter. CLN1 and CLN2 are similar, but also very different. Now, I need to preface my next statement by saying none of these conditions or diagnoses that we talk about with our families are easy. They are all journeys with many challenges and tough conversations. This conversation about Ryker's condition is without a doubt tough and emotional. Batten disease is a rare, fatal disorder that over time damages the brain and nervous system, and there is currently no cure. In this episode, we navigate through the painful journey of discovering Ryker's diagnosis. We talk about navigating the acceptance of community. Accepting help isn't easy. How do you balance the feeling like you're taking advantage of people and actually accepting genuine generosity? We talk about the importance of connecting to people on a similar journey through conferences. We also get some sound advice from Ross and Amy on how moments matter. Life is precious. With me in this interview is Jessica Santo, our talented photographer and family relations director. You will also occasionally hear the adorable Mila, Ryker's little sister, in the background, and you might also hear some sounds of a really cool dog who wants to be a part of the conversation but had to stay in another room. Please take a second to rate and review this podcast, spread the word about a meaningful podcast and great stories. We begin with Amy talking about being surrounded by a loving, prayerful community from the beginning of their journey.
Our community has been amazing. Before Ryker was ever even diagnosed, and honestly, before we really even knew how serious his diagnosis would be, a friend and a colleague of mine gathered our community together and had a benefit or a supper for him, which I feel like now in hindsight they knew, more than we did, or maybe we didn't want to see it. But that was really awesome to see everyone come together and support us, and they've all continued to do that over the years, between Ryker's school, his therapists, our church community, our home communities, our families.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Families definitely. Even just coming over to take care of Mila for a minute. We got to run up to Omaha for an appointment. Well, so both of our parents are very close, and they help us out all the time. Our siblings are close, and they help us out a lot too. So we've been really lucky in that category, so we've got a lot of support.
Have you guys found it hard in this kind of new journey to reach out for help?
Or even accept it?
Accept it's been a problem, yes.
Because I'm sure people always want to step up and they always want to help people that they love. And I'm sure when that's getting poured out to you, at times it could probably feel a little overwhelming, maybe.
Yeah.
It can be hard to accept.
Absolutely. Because
it's always appreciated. But.
Yeah. We feel like, I don't know, it's all from love. We feel like we don't need it or want to be, I don't know what the right way to say it.
Right.
We never, you don't ever want to take advantage of people, I think. And it's also hard to admit that you're in a situation that people might think that you need help,
and they just want to help too, and that's the easiest way is to have a fundraiser or whatever. Or it just seems
it's probably really hard to separate that feeling of accepting people's generosity versus feeling like you're taking advantage of people, and that's I don't think anybody ever teaches you how to separate those out.
Right,
No.
Exactly, and. I mean, we would never do that, but you don't want to be. You just want to feel like that, I guess.
Yeah. Have you found that easier over time? Accepting that people want to help, or
I understand, because it's like it comes from care and love that they're like, yeah, we want to help you out, and we don't know how other than this, and
Yeah, it's more of like we've learned to understand it, I think. Yeah.
I have a question on that. I think that sometimes when people are faced with friends or family kind of in, whether it be cancer or a rare diagnosis, they sometimes kind of freeze up and they don't get scared of the situation, but they don't really know how to handle it as like a friend or a family member. So would you have any advice to someone who maybe has a friend with a diagnosis that wants to reach out and help, but they just don't know how? Or maybe they're afraid of what to say. Is there anything that you can tell them on how to approach that?
I think my advice would be to approach it. I don't think, as long as your heart's in the right place, it's going to be well received. I think I found that I appreciate it when people do say something to us, because otherwise it's just kind of lurking in the background and this awkwardness that everyone's thinking, but no one speaks. And it's hard for us to be the first person to bring up, when people see Ryker, they can tell something's wrong. But it's hard to be the first to bring it up, because then you feel like you're focusing on it or forcing it. But it definitely takes the pressure off when people just ask questions and let you explain.
Yeah.
I like talking about it. It relieves some of the pressure, I think.
Yeah, for sure. So to kind of dive into Ryker a little bit, for those who don't really know his journey, he was diagnosed with Batten's disease. Could you just tell us a little bit about that journey and whatever season you want to start with, whether it be at the beginning or where you're at now? I know it's kind of Batten's disease is a tough diagnosis that we've learned about just from talking with you guys. So whatever you want to share about that.
Basically, everything was pretty normal in his life up until about the age of 4. He was meeting all of his milestones.
Super smart and
ABCs, counting to 10, potty trained.
Running around doing
everything normal. Everything's normal,
Yeah.
And then, about the age of 4, we started noticing just weird things, like he would have accidents in his pants, potty training, and then.
And we had just moved to a new daycare, and so they were actually evaluating him, and he wouldn't do his ABCs and numbers and colors and the stuff that he's just known, to us for a long time. And so we honestly just, in our minds, were like, well, he's just having troubles with the transition.
I think any parent would feel the same exact way. I think the same thing.
And so they continued, he wouldn't do these things for them. And so they actually suggested, this was over the summertime, so they suggested we reach out to Lincoln Public Schools, which is our local school here, school system, and have them come evaluate him. And so they did that in August when they got back into session, and they said, he qualifies for services. And so then they actually had a resource teacher, a special education teacher, come out and start working with him, along with a physical therapist, and I think maybe an occupational therapist too. And they were actually able to document then further loss of skill just within a month of them working with him. And so that's when we went to our pediatrician, and we were definitely at this point starting to notice, we knew it wasn't him acting out anymore. He was having motor skill troubles. He couldn't to pick up a block and put it in this shape and stuff was getting difficult for him, and he was just flailing his arms like he couldn't control them, and just some strange things.
As a mom, your mind at that point is kind of am I seeing this, or is this actually happening?
Yeah, and this was our first child too, so we don't know any different. But it was obvious that something was wrong. So basically,
going back to the pediatrician, she's like, "Well, this is a much different child than I saw just 4 months ago." Yeah. And so she ordered. I'm
sure that was something that was very hard to.
Because
she had that when it's right in front of you. You don't notice the drastic change as much because it's more gradual. But
it's every day,
she hadn't seen him since 4 months ago, and it was very drastic to her. So she had ordered us to see a pediatric neurologist, and what was the other one? Early childhood development specialist. So those orders were put in, but these were both pediatric specialists, and just not very many of them. And so a couple months went by, and around in December, I think, we were losing almost all of his words. He was spinning in circles, just not drooling, like we were losing him, and we could tell.
And how? So at this point, you're how many months into kind of the first signs of it?
6.
Yeah, and it just straight up takes forever to get an appointment.
And so we hadn't even seen anyone yet.
You don't have there's only how many specialists even close,
and so we reached back out to our pediatrician and let her know we hadn't seen anyone and that we were getting really scared. So she took matters into her own hands and ordered some tests that she thought they would be ordering anyways, so that when we did get into them, we'd have the results of these things. Mm-hmm. And that was an MRI on his brain and an EEG.
Which an EEG is what?
Brain. It tests your brain function.
Yeah.
Now, during all this, were you guys going down the Google rabbit hole?
Oh, of course.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, yeah, of course. And then you just drive yourself crazy.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Doing your own
and
research.
And we were having things suggested to us. We started doing some homeopathy treatments and stuff, and some chiropractic care, things that we could do because we were waiting on the medical teams to.
Just trying to treat the symptoms that were being shown.
Mm-hmm. And then even so when was that? Towards the end, when we actually sent the blood test in, that's what it was, right?
That was in January. Yeah.
So they had to go to North Carolina, I believe, and that took a while to get back.
You're talking about the genetic test.
Yeah.
What is a while in that time frame? Because I'm sure every day at this point feels.
Yeah, so he skipped ahead a little bit. Actually, that was. So first we had the brain MRI done in January. Then she got that done, and the EEG. EEG was fine. The brain. So the technician actually diagnosed Ryker with a Dandy Walker variant, and that felt horrible because they told us they didn't know what his future would be, and kind of left it at that. And so we were Googling that, and they told us he had fluid building up on the cerebellum of his brain. And scheduled an appointment with us to go see a neurosurgeon, a pediatric neurosurgeon, to get a shunt put in to relieve this pressure off of his brain. And so that was in February. Yeah. Then we went to go see him, and we got there, and he looked at the MRI and said, "No, he actually doesn't need this.
This isn't what it is."
Yeah,
that had to be kind of defeating. But
yeah.
How
do you process that?
It was a lot. I remember when we got the diagnosis for the Dandy Walker. I was bawling, I lost it, and in return, I'd take that diagnosis back over what we ended up with, but yeah, and then I remember walking out of there just kind of numb because we were back to square one too. You're relieved that he doesn't have that and he doesn't need this shunt, but
you still
something's still wrong.
We don't know what it is.
Yeah. And so the neurosurgeon ordered an MRI on his spine and put in an order for us to see a metabolic specialist. And we keep in mind we still have never seen the neurologist yet. We're still waiting on that. And we did go see the early childhood development specialist. Then I think shortly after that as well, we got into him finally. And I don't know that he had a lot to say. The metabolic specialist was the one that actually ended up diagnosing Ryker. The spinal MRI came back just fine, too.
At this point, have you guys thought about Batten's disease?
We'd never even heard of it. We never heard of it until they diagnosed him.
Yeah.
Nope.
Was there a particular diagnosis that in your kind of research or whatever was sticking out to you and you thought maybe this is it?
There was a regressive autism was the only thing that we had really... Because of the way he was clenching his arms.
Autism in my head just makes sense because...
He was regressing. And he had a lot of, when you see some autistic kids, some of those same, the tight muscles and the...
The constant movement.
Yep. Yep. But, we didn't know why, and we didn't know what to do about it, and honestly, none of the doctors ever said any... That was me on Google. It's the only thing I could find that made any sense at all. And... So the metabolic specialist had done some tests, and they did find that he had very long-chain fatty acids. We changed his diet, and that went away, but none of his symptoms went away, so that wasn't it. And then he ordered us to have an ERG done, which is a scan of his eyes, because he was concerned about his vision. And we went to just your typical ophthalmologist, and they said his eyes look fine. So we had this ERG then next, and that actually said that his eyes were not communicating with his brain. And what they tell us at the time, he probably couldn't see more than 2 or 3 feet in front of him, and even then it was probably just like blurry outlines.
Wow.
Yep.
That was hard to hear too, because he's like, he probably can't make out your face, and, but that was the test thing.
That has to be a tough thing to hear. I'm sorry.
Right.
Now, how old is he at that point?
He just turned 5 in June. This is in August.
And was Mila... At what point did she come into the picture?
Mila was born already before he started regressing.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Mila would have been 8 months old-ish when he started.
So you're going through all this while managing
a newborn.
A newborn.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, but that ERG, that was what we needed to get the genetic testing that they wanted to do.
I just feel like after that, like that eye, you find that out about his vision. As a mom, I would just feel like I would just go home and just look at my son and be like, what am I not seeing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That definitely made things a lot more scary. Just knowing that he couldn't see, and it was also amazing because, like we had told you guys, we had just moved into a new house, and like he was navigating this place like, unfamiliar place like a champ. Like we had our oopses and things, which make a lot of sense in hindsight.
Right. After finding that out,
but he was also losing so much motor skill too. So we didn't. The motor skill and the vision together is just miraculous. He really is a trooper.
Yeah, he would still bump into things and fall and stuff and trip, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it was at the end of August. They ordered these genetic tests done then, and it took 7 weeks. They didn't tell us what they were testing for. They just told us they wanted to do some genetic tests. Our pediatrician had told us that there was one thing that the metabolic specialist mentioned to her that she thought sounded a lot like him, and it was really bad. That's all they told us. That's all you heard. Yeah. Yep. So we waited 7 weeks then for those results.
7 weeks.
7 weeks. That was rough.
Yeah.
7 weeks with no really communications with anyone.
No, I actually called the day the 7 weeks was up because we hadn't heard. and they called me back the next day.
It could take up to 7 weeks.
Yeah. And so I waited the 7 weeks, And then,
that's exactly what I would do. I would call him that day.
But why would it take that long?
I don't know.
I think there's maybe only a few labs that do the specific testing that they needed done. They called me back that next day then, and I was actually out on a run, and Ross was building a house near where we live, and he was out in the driveway as the doctor called. I was running by him, so I stopped, and I went up, and we just had him on speakerphone, and he told us right there together, told us that Ryker had this, he actually told us wrong. First he had said CLN2.
CLN2, mm-hmm.
But that it was fatal 100% of the time, and there was nothing we could do. And that was kind of the extent of the phone call. He was like, "Let's get together next week, and we'll dive into it a little bit more." But,
so told you the wrong diagnosis, but then the unfortunate.
Yeah. So it's the same result. It's just a different form of it, which. Because we thought he had CLN2, there is actually some infusions they can do right now for CLN2 that will slow the progression. And so we had gone down that path of trying to get him signed up to maybe start these infusions and things. And that's how we found out we had been told the wrong type. Yeah, because he was actually not eligible to.
What's the CLN1, which is the fastest acting and
earliest onset. Typically.
Yep.
Yeah.
So in layman's terms, can you just describe to anybody listening what it does? What his disease is doing?
So he has a mutation of the PPT1 gene, which causes his body to not produce an enzyme that clears the waste out of the cells in your brain. And so as this waste builds up, it kills off the cells in his brain. So his cells are dying.
And there's no treatment, and there's
no cure, and there's not even a treatment. So
they're working on a clinical trial. It was supposed to be out last year, and then they told us this year, and it's not.
Yep.
We haven't been told what the qualifiers or unqualifiers are.
Is anybody medically guiding you through I guess Ryker's comfortability, therapies.
Honestly, his school's been the best for us. The therapist said his PT, he has OT, he has a vision.
All through school.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he'll go just a typical day at school, and then he'll also receive therapy during the school day.
Yep.
That's amazing. What school does he go to?
He goes to Adams Elementary.
That sounds like it's a great school.
It really is.
They've been so amazing.
They've been very good.
Yeah, and even like his PT also teaches his Sunday school class at church. And
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, and so, I mean, he's surrounded by, like we said before, just an amazing community and people supporting him.
And a great support system for you guys as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Probably you guys find comfort in knowing that these are professionals that have a good grasp on what he needs. And it kind of doesn't take the pressure off, but probably relieves a little bit of that for you during the day too.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we truly, like, when Ryker started regressing he was at his daycare, we talked about, and when they couldn't care for him anymore because they just weren't equipped for one-on-one care, one of his teachers there offered to come to our house, and so she would...
That's incredible.
Yeah, so Ryker had started school, but she would bring our daughter home with her from the daycare, meet Ryker on the bus here, and stay with him then until
we got home from work, so we could still work a full day.
And then, she helped us out for a couple of years, and then this last year, she had graduated college and had a career and wasn't able to, so we reached out to our community, and his paras from school now watched him all summer for us, which was amazing. They're like, they told us we missed him last summer, and he changed so much over the summer. We just love it if we could, divide our time between him this summer. And
people in communities like that start to feel more like family.
Right.
Our purpose at Go Shout Love is to do amazing things for amazing families like Ryker's. We may say that a lot, and we mean it. But doing amazing things doesn't end by simply saying it. It takes action and community. That is why each month we shout love for families through the sale of creative apparel inspired by the kiddos. Please visit our website, GoShout.love, to support Ryker through the purchase of a t-shirt, a tumbler, hat, hoodie, or other items. And every item sold in November will help purchase time-sensitive medical equipment not covered by insurance. You can also shout love every month for different families by starting a subscription. When you begin your subscription, use the discount code PODCAST at checkout, and you will get $5 off your first month.
I know you mentioned earlier when you were, excuse me, my allergies are taking over, when we were setting up for the podcast that you borrowed a chair from the school because it was taking insurance so long to process your claim. And that's kind of a big hurdle that you guys have been facing is Ryker shows new symptoms and new hurdles that you guys are facing. It's taking insurance companies too long to approve your needs.
Yep.
So that's definitely been our biggest struggle because his disease acts so quickly that, once we see that we need something or find something that'll work for our needs, we're not able to get it approved quick enough to be able to use it.
The perfect example is that the chair that you borrowed from the school, you were trying to get approved by insurance for him to eat with you at the table.
Yep.
By the time you actually would have gotten the chair, he was no longer able to.
It's too late at
That's
that point,
crazy.
and then
And we saw the bed in there.
Yes.
Where,
tell us a little bit about that.
So as Ryker was regressing, he told you he would kind of wander around the house. He was losing his vision, losing his motor skills, and so we had just laid his mattress on the floor. He'd taken the bed away completely, and that way he wouldn't fall out of it.
That was part of it too, because with Batten disease, kids don't sleep at night a lot.
Right.
They'll go all night without sleeping. Well, and he was still very mobile at this point, and so he would fall out of bed constantly. So we just put the mattress on the floor, and so when he would roll out of bed,
we'd try to
he'd
sleep
roll
lightly because we'd have to jump up if we heard him get up.
So it was like having a newborn because he'd wake up in the middle of the night constantly.
Yeah. Just didn't get a lot of sleep. But I had met a mom also through one of our therapists at school had connected me with her just for support. They had been through a lot too. And we had met just once in person and then text a few times, maybe a couple Facebook messages. And their daughter had passed away I think it was last June, so I believe it was 2018.
Was she 18?
Mm-hmm,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but she had this bed it's called an entrapment bed, so it has sides on it, so it's kind of like a big crib, but it's also like a hospital bed, and so
yeah.
For any of our Go
raise them
Shout Love
up
listeners, this is what Miss Everly last month was using her Go Shout Love funds for. So
yeah,
a lot of our shouters know what this bed is and how important it is.
Changed our lives.
It's
The
awesome.
Colson family gave us Valerie's bed then.
Yeah, they just gave it to us. So
and we were able to sleep again. It was like I remember the first night we could sleep all night in bed because we knew he was safe. And
he wouldn't be out wandering around, hitting his head or falling or
So, kind of along those lines, finally getting rest, with all the pressures and worries that you guys go through, how do you take care of yourselves individually and as a couple? That's got to be very difficult to manage with everything that you got going on.
You know, we said we have amazing families, and they really are. We really don't leave Ryker with anyone that doesn't know him. So our families really do pick up the load there, because anytime we want to go out, you know, we're lucky to have both of our parents close and all of our siblings pretty close. Our nieces have even chipped in and watched him a little bit. And, you know, and then obviously his paras and Aubrey over the summers and things. And I like to go to the gym. The daycare at the gym will watch Ryker too. They love him there.
What did we just went to Husker game a couple Saturdays ago, but our parents come up and watch him. Like, no big deal. No, we got killed.
It was
the Ohio State game. It was bad.
Huskers, let's do it for Ryker. We got to turn it around. It's a bad season.
It was bad.
I'm just curious, in this season that you guys are going through, did you reach out to find if there was any Baton support groups or anything that you could maybe find, like on social? I know that always helps a lot of
So
families.
actually the doctor had told us, he goes, find other parents because they'll know more than we know.
Yeah, that's the thing.
And
the
it's
doctors,
been true.
it's just so rare that they don't even know. Like,
parents in the journey.
I'm really glad that they said that, though.
Yeah,
They're pretty honest, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's the BDSRA, the Batten Disease Support and Research Association.
You got it.
yeah.
And they connected me with a mom right away. Her name was Becca Bauman, and she called me on the phone, and we talked on the phone, and she's been great. And she's actually written a book recently that's really, it's called Can't Steal My Joy, and it's just very...
Is it about Batten disease?
It's about their journey.
Is it on Amazon?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep.
Okay.
Can't Steal My Joy, A New Journey to Brave. But just how their faith helped them through the journey. And it, you know, I think our faith too has been very important to making it through this and keeping that hope. Even, I mean, that's where the hope lies, especially when, you know, doctors and everyone in this world is basically saying there is no hope.
I just want to touch on that just for a brief moment, because I feel like some people, when they're faced with these situations, might question their faith a little bit, while others might kind of hold on to it with all that they can because it's all that they have. Mm-hmm. So how has your faith helped you through this season with Ryker?
We know there's a better place. You know, as time on Earth is probably pretty limited at this point. So yeah, we definitely believe in heaven, and that's where Ryker's going to be, and
we'll see him again. He'll be happy
he's
and
gonna
healthy
get there
and running
before
around
us.
and riding on tractors and everything that we know he loves and can't do right now. It's important because it does give us hope, and I think things would be really dark without any hope.
Yeah.
Very angry, probably, too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it allows us to enjoy him while he's here and know that no matter what happens, he's taken care of.
So when you found this Batten's group, what did that do for you, your spirits and your kind of confidence in raising Ryker?
Well,
So we
it was
went.
great.
They have a conference every year.
They have a conference every
Yeah.
year. So
And you guys have been to it?
We
Twice
went
now.
twice now. The first
Where's
year
it at?
we went to Nashville, and this last year was in Denver. They
wow.
bounce around all over
Well,
the
it's
United
nice too
States.
because
So
do you guys take Ryker?
yes,
So you get to travel a little bit. It's a little
Yep.
vacation.
Right,
And,
right.
yeah,
And
And
you know
that's-
you're going to be taken care of there.
Exactly.
too.
They know exactly what you're going through. And that, so the first year, so he was diagnosed in October, and it was in July. And so that was our first one that we went to. And so that was the first time we actually got to meet other parents that had Batten's kids. And it was just,
it was
there's something
eye-opening.
so, eye-opening. Things can always be worse. Like, you don't have it the worst. But it was also so comforting.
Because I know that you kind of shared a little story.
Well,
in that, if
so
you're
yeah, when we
comfortable.
got there, there was a teenage boy in the restaurant, and his mom and grandma were just having a struggle, to control him. He was very frustrated, throwing stuff. He couldn't communicate the way he wanted to communicate to them. So I don't know for sure what type of Batten's disease he had, but some of them, like CLM3, typically is onsets in your teenage years. So these kids have had a perfectly normal life up until
you're a teenager, and then all of a sudden things
you start to lose your vision, you start to lose your motor skills and your ability to speak, and so much more
on top of going through everything
Yes.
that teenagers go through.
Absolutely.
So
and
they
the
understand
CLN3
that
too,
they're-
they keep their cognitive skills a
they
lot
understand
longer.
they're losing.
Yeah.
and actually,
And
that,
they know what they're missing, what they used to be able to do, and they can't now, and it's super frustrating.
And one of the the other parents there that is actually CLN1. It's weird because it was, what is the kid? He's 14, right? And he just got diagnosed with it, and he just
It just goes to show every kid's different. But.
Yeah, we got to hang out with him quite a bit there in Denver, and basically the hardest thing he said, he's like, his kid comes up to him, he's like, "Dad, am I going to be able to see again?" And what do you tell him?
And so that's something we never had to deal with because Ryker's happened so quickly, and he was so young that we never had to answer those questions. And he's just happy. He doesn't know any different. Like, he's enjoying life, and
you can see he's a very joyful, happy
Yeah.
kid.
And he's always been happy, and
and so we're grateful for that because that's all we have. That's how we'll remember him. He'll always just be this like. He's happy no matter what. Like, we've never heard the kid throw a fit in his life, even before, he started regressing. He was just laid back, easy going.
That's the crazy thing. Even, like, vegetables. He ate vegetables. Like, he didn't complain about that at all, ever. Like,
We always ask this question, and I always love to hear the answers because it's always so encouraging. But if you could maybe go back and tell yourself, or you could tell a new mom, same with you, Ross, or a dad, at the very beginning stages of this, maybe who's just gotten that Batten disease diagnosis, what would you tell them?
I have told them that because of the same parents that
So
we meet at
them
the
2
conferences.
weeks after their son got diagnosed.
They just found out.
So you've actually been in this exact
Yes.
situation.
What I say is enjoy every moment. Take a lot of videos. Take a lot of pictures. That's one thing.
It's so nice to look back and
because Ryker
remember.
can't talk anymore, so we look at videos where he's
can
talking.
hear his voice.
He's having a conversation, and it's hard to hear, but it's great to hear.
I think that's something that it's so important for parents to hear.
Yeah.
I wish we had more
Listen to your
videos.
kids.
Yeah.
Listen to your kids talk because
Yeah.
there could be a time where they don't.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Take the vacations. Do what they want to do. They were big Packers fans, so they went to Lambeau and did the whole family experience there. We were actually fortunate enough to through Make-A-Wish, Nebraska, that we got to take the family to Disney. And Ryker he was still good enough to ride on some of the rides, and so we got to do all that
That's
and
awesome.
enjoy it as a
Yeah.
family. That was
That's
a
a
really
great
great
memory.
experience.
Yep.
So I would
And it's
say
something that I think Mila will remember.
absolutely.
Too, so.
And so we
Yeah.
have the memories. We have the book right over there, just all the pictures we took and everything. And yeah, I would. I mean, you
Just
still got
cherish
to.
it.
Yeah, you still got to live your life. You got to go to work, but
What I love about that piece of advice is it comes from wisdom of your guys' situation, but it is applicable to anybody. People need to slow down and enjoy their kids.
Right.
Yeah.
You
Right.
need to cherish those moments no matter what the situation.
Well, I think just with technology, like we get caught up still. I mean, we find
Oh, yeah.
ourselves rushing through the day and just getting things done. But like Ryker's always here to remind us to slow down and to enjoy it and remember it and cherish it.
That's something that these Go Shout Love kids have definitely taught me. Mm-hmm. All of them. Just to slow down.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
And what about you, Amy? What would you tell a new mom?
I mean, pretty much the same thing. Just listen to them, soak it up, cherish it, because it's not guaranteed.
And every situation's different, and obviously ours, we know the final answer, and it's not good. So I mean, I don't know if that's better or worse. We could get into a car wreck and something tragic like that happens. We're here, I guess. We have time to...
A diagnosis like this forces a lot of these conversations to happen. Like, we've had that conversation. Is it better to rip the Band-Aid off or to slowly watch it happen,
Mm-hmm. Or even, and even with Batten's, there is no treatment. Like, if it's a cancer, a kid with cancer, at least there's things you can do. Is that better or worse? Maybe you drag it out and it's painful, and where Ryker is, we just keep him as comfortable as possible, and
like
he's happy. He's not in pain. So I don't know.
That's like, even if there were a treatment, we'd have to make that decision because he is so happy and comfortable. And are we doing this for us? And it would make a difference to us too if it was a treatment that ended in a cure or just slowing the progression, I think, and how invasive it was for him.
Mm-hmm.
What's been the most inspiring? We don't have to go too deep into this, but I just am curious. What's been the most kind of inspiring thing that you've seen Mila do with Ryker? Because I'm sure she's a spunky little girl. So I'm sure she's a very good sister. How does she take on Ryker's little life?
Oh my gosh.
She's mostly hopeful. Yeah, she is. She's been good, but we've noticed, unfortunately, she doesn't get as much attention as she probably should because we have to give so much to Ryker, but she's really been pretty good, though.
She's started to take on kind of a motherly role with him, though.
That's beautiful.
Like, it is so... Oh, my God. My heart wants to explode when I see her. She'll go, get in the bouncer with him and, just, Ryker, do you want to play? Or, Ryker, do you need this? Or... she'll crawl up in his recliner with him when he's got his feeding tube in, and watch his iPad with him, or
so they'll watch a movie together or whatever in a chair.
Or she went, after he got his G button in July, she wanted to help hook him up, and stuff, and so she, we taught her how,
and
obviously with our help, but she got to put the little connector together. And
there again,
push the buttons.
She's never really known any difference either, though. So obviously Ryker used to we used to eat at the table and sit at the table, but we would have to feed him,
One really inspiring thing for me was we had a friend come over that their daughter had somewhat recently been diagnosed with ataxia, and so it's a muscular disease, genetic thing too, and so she's just like a little bit more clumsy at this point, has a little bit, her feet get kind of tangled up and stuff like that, and Mila just saw a friend and that was it, and they ran off and started playing.
That's
and
beautiful.
I didn't think anything of it, but they were coming up the stairs and the little girl kind of fell into Mila a little bit, and kind of pushed her, but not on purpose, and Mila didn't even flinch. She just, didn't, because she's used to her brother, batting around and pulling and, hitting her or whatever, and not on purpose, but the other mother was like, oh my gosh, she's like, she didn't even bat an eye. She's like, her daughter, struggles at school because friends get upset with because they think, maybe she's trying to push them or whatever. Right. And she's like, Mila doesn't even notice. And I'm like, well, no, she's used to it. But it just made me think, she's going to be an amazing adult, like just an amazing person, because she's going to go through one of the hardest things in her life at such a young age.
She's getting a lot of maturity already.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She'll go on to make a big difference because of Ryker, I have no doubt. And that's something that we see with all of these Go Shout Love siblings too, is they have this amazing little, I want to say gift, because of their siblings. And it's just, they're so empathetic at such young ages, and it's a really beautiful thing to see.
Yeah, and we see it at his school too with all the kids, all his friends, he's just Ryker to them, and they love him. And when he misses a day, everyone wonders where Ryker is, and
There again, we've been very fortunate with the school system here, and other kids maybe it's not as good. But
we've
they've
heard
been
stories of other
very
families,
good.
But so yeah, we know how fortunate we are to have them.
Thank you for listening. These voices, these stories, these journeys, they matter. Moments matter, and life is indeed precious. Please take a second to rate and review this podcast on whatever platform you're listening on. It is a vital part and a very simple way for you to assist us in shouting love. Go to our shop at GoShout.love and take a second to look at our uniquely designed and incredibly comfortable apparel. And remember, if you start a subscription, to use the discount code podcast at checkout to get $5 off your first month. When all of that is done, take a deep breath and go shout love. Thanks, everyone.